You're watching this video, so the chances are great that you enjoy what we create here at the Audrain. And if you do, why not take the next step and subscribe to this channel? You might also consider a membership in the Audrain Automobile Museum. We mount 4 new exhibitions each year featuring cars from the Audrain collections and loans from some of the leading collectors and institutions around the world. Click here to find out more.
So Donald, let's tell the folks what we're driving. This is your personal car, correct?
This is my personal car. It's a 1953 Jaguar Mark VII. And it's an interesting thing because we will discover, as the day unfolds, that the tenuous connection between the cars selected today and the house we're going to visit today is, I think, actually one which is rather obvious and one which you will relate to very, very, very much.
Oh, well, I'm fascinated to hear what that is.
Of course, you know, this was the first new post-war Jaguar after the Mark V,
Right.
which is basically a redo of the last pre-war Jaguar. And it was most noted for its amazing engine. Of course, Jaguar's famous slogan that they first came out in this car, grace, pace, and space.
Right.
And the grace is obvious. You know, people often mistake this car for a Bentley.
Or even a Rolls-Royce.
Yeah. They just see these lines. It's got this totally English club interior.
Right.
The big leather seats and all the burl wood. And yet, it's powered by probably, I mean, certainly, arguably, one of the legendary engines of all time.
You know, it's so funny. These are one of the great bargains if you're looking for a used classic, because to most people it just looks like a big, heavy, clumsy sedan.
Exactly.
But you realize it's 1953. You've got dual overhead cams, which in American cars is a fairly recent thing.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this would be the, I guess it's fair to say, the European equivalent to the small block Chevy. It was an engine that was used in everything Jaguar built. It was one of the great engines of all time. Cast iron. I mean, it is heavy, but so durable. You could win races. You could win rallies. You could do 24 hours with this thing. You couldn't break these motors, which for a European engine was quite rare, because most Americans, dealing with little tiny Fiats and all things like that, or Wolsleys and all these other kind of cars, they all seem so delicate, you know?
Exactly.
This is like a big, heavy American sedan you could throw around.
And this is a big engine by European standards as well. It's 3.4 liters.
Right.
So it's not a small engine, by European standards. And the fact that the XK120 was introduced simply to show off the engine, which is designed for this car. They had no intention of making a production of the XK120. It just happened to be so popular, they thought, oh my God, we've got to keep building these things.
In fact, they also built a 4-cylinder version of this engine.
Yes, the XK100, which never went into production.
Yeah, because they think, why not just put the big 6 and everything, you know? Because in Europe, a 6 is the American equivalent of an 8.
Yes.
And I think to most engineers, a 6 was, at least back in the day, better balanced. It was smoother.
The 6 was always the perfect engine.
Right.
In terms of inherent balance. You didn't have to add balance shafts and all that, which came later for the 4 cylinders and things like that.
You know, I'm proud the Audrain Museum has chosen J&L's car care products as the official car care product of the Concours. You know, you're not supposed to use that in direct sunlight.
Yeah, but I'm working on my tan, Jay.
Okay. Hard to get help. It's actually very pleasant to drive. I could see why you bought it. And if you ever seen one of these at auction, grab it, because it really is a sleeper. You're getting XK levels of performance with obviously
incredible comfort.
Yeah.
You know, I've taken this on 1,000-mile rallies, and I'll tell you, there's not a better rally companion. And it was very funny because there are a bunch of folks in 911 Porsches, and I was keeping up with them on mountain roads, and I said, how the heck can you do that? You're a great driver. I said, no, I'm not a great driver. I'm an okay driver, but the car is sensational.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, just hanging the tail out on this seems, oh my God.
Yeah, it's making the tires squeal. This is running on Dunlop radials to the same size as the original bias ply tires, but they are narrow, and the construction is such that they really feel and behave like the bias ply.
Right.
You can always feel, which I know you and I both love about cars like this, you feel what the car is doing all the time. There are no surprises. You know, I feel really, really great about your reaction to this car, because I love this car so much.
Oh yeah.
And I was very eager to have you drive it. I feel like we're back in the very first Jay Leno's garage that we did together with my Lancia Fulvia.
Yeah.
And you know, it's one of the things, I know that you're a Jaguar guy, so it's very exciting to experience this with you. And of course, this is the perfect introduction to the house we're going to see today, because as you so beautifully put it, and you set up all the situations that I want perfectly, you look at this car and you see this very elegant sort of planted sedan.
Right.
And yet under the hood is a very flexible, powerful, legendary power plant that would power race cars.
Right.
So we're going to see sort of what lies beneath in this house we're going to see today, Soleil. And it is a beautiful, very traditional, French-inspired Newport estate that hides a surprise. So this is Soleil, Field of Sun.
So French, obviously.
Yes.
Is it based on a French chateau or something like that?
It is, in fact. It's modeled after La Lanterne, which is a hunting lodge at Versailles, built for the master of the hunt.
All right.
And the house was completed in 1929 by the New York architects Henry Palamas and Louis Coffin for Lucy Drexel Dahlgren.
Right.
She was the niece of the founder of J.P. Morgan, and of course a member of the great Drexel banking family. And it's a very interesting thing that, you know, Newport, we've seen in a lot of the other houses that we've done here in Mansions and Motorcars, Newport was a place that had a lot of very independent, strong women. Lucy had divorced her husband in 1912 for his adulterous behavior.
Right.
And so this house was built for her. One of the 3 houses that she owned, one here, one in New York, one in France. And so this was really a retreat for her. This is also a very unique property because it's one of the few properties in Newport that is a complete estate as was originally envisioned. It sits on 5.5 acres, runs from Bellevue Avenue to Coggeshall Avenue, which is the typical service entrance, has its original carriage house back in Coggeshall Avenue. And it's interesting, for the architectural firm, this house, which is 22 rooms, was a small project.
Yeah, that's
it was not one of the big houses that they often worked on.
And that's really, because when you think of the classic houses, they ran from about 1860 to just about 29. My house was built in 36, so it's sort of the last of the cottages, as they call it. So, but this is right up there too. This is what, 27, 29?
1929 it was completed.
Okay.
And the other interesting thing about this house, which is so wonderfully Newport as well, is that it has been the home of a lot of different, very important Newport personalities. After Lucy Drexel Dahlgren, the next owner was Robert Goulet, not the singer, but Robert Goulet, the person who was a member of the Goulet family whose home, Ochre Court, is here in Newport, and we featured on one of our previous episodes.
Right.
And he donated the house in 1947 to the Sisters of Mercy to start Salve Regina, then college, now university.
Right.
And so he downsized from Ochre Court to here, to Soleil. And at that point, he also brought in one of the leading French decorating firms at the time in the early 1950s to do a refresh of the house and bring it up to his levels. When we go inside, you'll see some amazing interiors that are just absolutely spectacular and very much in the French style. Another great connection is that after Golay, the next owner was Russell Aitken, the great big game hunter and an artist and former publisher of Field and Stream magazine, who was also the stepfather of Sonny von Bülow.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And Sonny von Bülow, of course, lived across the street in Clarendon Court, another home that we featured in Mansions and Motorcars.
Of course, when you have this much money, you're a big game hunter. They actually bring the animal to your house and you just shoot it. And then, yeah, the idea that you're, I love that, a big game hunter. Well, let's go take a look.
All right.
Come on.
It's a great place. So here we are inside Soleil. And the entryway immediately tells that same story of the hunting lodge. You see, typical black and white marble floor, because this is a working home.
Right.
You know, and the details, though, are so absolutely marvelous in this house.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, that's what's fun about these old houses. Your eyes just go to different things. I don't like modern houses. You go in and it's a white room with a big screen TV, and everybody focuses on the TV. You know, here, before Netflix, this is what you looked at, all interesting little details in the house.
And one of the things that also makes this place very special are the ties to France. And I think they're best seen in this wonderful library. Let's take a look at this library, this wonderful paneling.
Well, I love houses with libraries in them. You know, to me, it's my favorite room in the house. You know, when I was looking for a house in LA, I said to her, does it have a library? And she takes me in and she shows me, and she looks, and that's all, and she goes, but you can put video cassettes in here. You don't have to put books in here. I go, no, I have books.
Yeah, and there's this wonderful thing about decorating with books.
Yeah.
And knowing that people have walked into my homes and said, have you read all of those? It's like, yeah, that's why they're here.
Well, yeah.
But this is a room, again, very, very typically French and French country. This paneling is Louis XV. Right. And it's absolutely wonderful because it has great detail, and yet it's very relaxed.
Well, the thing I love is, it's a small room with a fireplace. And growing up in New England, there's nothing warmer than a fire. You turn the heat up in the house, but it's a different kind of heat. It's like the McDonald's French fry heat lamp. It's not hot like it's fresh cooked. It's just hot because it's under a hot lamp. And when you have a fireplace, that warmth you get from a log is just like nothing else in the world. So having a small room, you shut the doors. The rest of the house can be cold, but you're nice and toasty in this little room with 2 or 3 logs burning, you know.
And this house, although again built in 1929, so not using the fireplaces for heat,
right.
We're told by the owner that it actually has almost a dozen fireplaces.
Yeah,
so it's a really amazing thing.
I know, that's
this
my
is just
favorite
an example of some of the rooms that are in the house. There are wonderful parquet floors in the house, great paneling and decoration, a wonderful ballroom, a spectacular kitchen, and of course the great secret that this house holds underneath all of this finery, which is technology.
Well, you know, the thing I love is the rooms are small, which is what I like. I hate these rooms. They build these palaces in LA with the double staircase, and they just seem so cold. This has this is a house you could just live in a couple of the rooms and be quite happy. You know, I'm gonna have the other rooms to go to occasionally, but it's just more fun if it's cozy. You know.
It's a house that lives very well intimately and also for large parties.
Let's take a look around.
And Jay, although you spoke about the appeal of the intimacy of the spaces, even in the largest space in the house, this ballroom, you still have a great feeling of being in a home. It's not overwhelming. The natural wood really sort of brings it all in. The Versailles parquet floors. It's a place that you feel very comfortable in.
Right, right.
And of course, what's really wonderful is with all of this wonderful paneling, the French boiserie, the Versailles parquet floors, the wonderful ceramic stove. It has the look of the 18th century, but underpinning all this is the most advanced technology possible. The owners have put in a 26-zone heating and air conditioning system, all controlled by computer, right, as well as fire and security. So this house lives in the 21st century underneath this wonderful 17th century built in 1929.
Or you could just put on a sweater. Oh, a little chilly. I'll put on a sweater. I can't imagine
We're lighting fire.
26 zone. What zone? Bob, what zone are we in? You know, it's going to drive you a little crazy. Wouldn't it drive you a little nuts? I mean, sometimes you get overwhelmed by technology. I mean, I think it's wonderful, but sometimes it's fun to live in it the way people lived in it at the time. You get the feel of it, you know, open windows rather than have air conditioning. Like, to me, I would use air conditioning in this house just a few days of the year when it was real. I mean, to me, to open these windows, you get the sea breeze, you get the fresh air. I mean, it's kind of fun, but I mean, I marvel at the technology, and it's amazing that you can do it, but it just almost seems overwhelming to me.
Well, it is one of those things that technology is our friend. Technology occasionally has been our foe, but the fact that you can integrate...
Thank you, Hal.
Exactly. I'm sorry, Jay, we can't do that.
I'm sorry, we can't do that.
But the fact that you can use technology in this way and underpin, I think, comes back to tie in together in a beautiful big bow the entire story of our show today.
Yeah, and we do that with the automobiles all the time. You get like a vintage V12 Jag, but to get better fuel economy elements, you put fuel injection on it. And fuel, you know, disc brakes. And so it's sort of, you're doing to a car what you're doing to a house, what you would do to a car. So it's kind of, this is like a restomod house.
Well, interesting that you should mention that. Let's take a look at the next car we're going to drive, which is surprising in its technology, but also slightly modified. Let's take a look at a really interesting station wagon.
All right.
So now, we get to see what interesting technology is hidden beneath the skin of this Corvair, one of our favorite cars.
Yes, lost technology.
So Jay, here we are on the road in the Lakewood, and as we discussed, our theme here is what lies beneath.
Right.
And this looks like a stock 1961 Chevy Corvair Lakewood wagon.
Right.
But it has been subtly modified. Some ways not so subtly, but the subtle modifications come in the engine, which is the upgraded full 110 horsepower, which is basically the Spider spec, without the turbo. And it's also got a lowered suspension, and the interior certainly has been treated to a major upgrade in terms of the materials, but in the same style as the original.
It is very nice. I would prefer that it was totally original. You know, it's so funny, we're in an era now where people are appreciating preservation more than modification. You know, you're never going to make an old car do what a modern car does, so you wind up with neither fish nor fowl. You know what I'm saying? You have something that doesn't quite fit in. You know, something I learned, when you look at all these old cars like this one, the rear end is lower than the front end.
Right.
And I assumed that was worn out leaf springs or whatever, but then as I'd read the designers' sort of theories and what the idea that the car was meant to look like it was taking off, like it's a rocket about to shoot off the launch pad, you know. And that's kind of when you see an old Cadillac and the rear end is sagging. To us, it looks like it's sagging, but the idea then was, oh my God, it looked like it's
the
moving.
Impression of speed.
Yeah, impression of speed. Yeah. This is probably one of the most misunderstood automobiles. I thought Corvair was the most European car ever built. It was Ed Cole's idea to build a European equivalent. It was air-cooled, which did away with, obviously, all the, coolant and all that overheating problems and all those kind of things. I mean, obviously, they wouldn't meet emissions today, but that's okay. It was a six-cylinder. It was a flat six. It was
a flat six.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, a rear-engine air-cooled flat six from General Motors in 1960.
Right, right. If you said to the most ardent automotive enthusiast, the Lakewood, who built it? Nobody would know.
Not a soul.
I think this only lasted a couple of years.
Yes.
There were better station wagons. The engine was in the back. You couldn't really load anything in it.
That's one of the clever things. We talk about today, one of the great advantages of the electric truck is the frunk.
Right.
The fact you actually have a covered space in a pickup truck
Right.
you didn't have before.
Right.
And yes, you're absolutely right. The load area was not very high in this, but you also look at the contemporary crossovers. They don't have more luggage space than this, and this
Right.
has more carrying space than those do because you have the space in the back, which is
Right.
flat, and you have the front trunk.
Right, right.
So it's a pretty interesting vehicle. But again, for its time, there were more practical, conventional vehicles. So
Yeah, but this car really set back American automotive design because, look, we tried the rear engine, we tried the air cool, we tried the flex. Let's just go back to building what we always built.
Right.
And it was a shame.
shrunken versions
Yeah.
of giant cars.
Yeah, this was a great automobile. The most misunderstood car.
I think that the Corvair is just such a great example of the technology that is hidden underneath a fairly innocuous body shell.
Right, right.
And that, just like the Jaguar, for a collector who wants to go sort of beyond the obvious, it offers great opportunity,
Yeah, no, I love Corvairs. I just think that, and there's still probably a million of them out on the road. There's a huge Corvair society,
Immense.
and
Great support for them.
Yeah.
And
And somewhere in Detroit, there is hidden a flat six Corvair overhead cam engine.
Oh.
Apparently it was developed, I heard. It's one of those great rumors, It's a bit like the Jeeps and Cosmoline for $25
Right.
and all that. But they did develop an overhead cam version. But where that engine is, nobody seems to
Jay, we will make it our life's work to find it.
If you know, please let us know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're watching this program, you've heard of this engine, contact me, contact Jake.
Meanwhile, I will continue to enjoy the two-speed transmission, which is so ridiculous. But these Power Glides were really powerful.
Yes.
They used them in drag racing. They were strong, they were bulletproof. But the idea of a two-speed transmission, it just seems so ridiculous. But the two-speed would always, and it would just shift like, it always used to make me laugh. You'd rev all the way up and just do it.
But, I think all in all, this is a terrific example of what technology can do when it's not in your face.
But if you need a good piece of bar bet trivia, ask any car guy, hey, who built the Lakewood? And see if nobody will know. You'll win that bet every time.
Bonus trivia.
Well, keeping the air-cooled theme going, this is one of my favorites.
Exactly, a 914, but a 914 with a difference.
A big difference. Car I regret not buying when I had the chance when they were cheap. You could get these for not next to nothing, but this is, tell what we're in, 1970 Porsche 914-6.
Yes.
This is the 914 Porsche, but with the 6-cylinder engine rather than the 4-cylinder. And it was a rather contrived thing back in the day. They were kind of VW Porsche, more VW than Porsche. So consequently, I think real Porsche files kind of shied away from it because it was seen as something less than a Porsche and more of a Volkswagen.
Which of course is ironic because to me, the 914 is basically the reinvention of the 356
Right.
in 1970.
Right. Right.
Because you look at what the accomplishment of this car is amazing, because Volkswagen needed something to replace the Karmann Ghia,
Right.
which is getting too old, and Porsche needed an entry-level car to frankly give them more business.
Right.
And so they thought, well, let's collaborate on this project. And the designer was tasked with something which was almost impossible. Design a car with character, a mid-engine car with character, but that didn't look like a Volkswagen and didn't look like a Porsche.
Well, it is truly a unique design. It looks like nothing else on the road. It's a real clean sheet of paper idea. You've got a top that comes off. It's a convertible or a hard top, which was perfect if you live, you know, in the eastern climates in the wintertime, because you got, well, the sealing and weatherproofing of a hard top and this adds some structural rigidity to it.
Exactly.
When it's in as well. These are wonderful. I don't know why I didn't buy one at the time. At the time,
You're probably too distracted by other things.
Other things, and the fact that I was young and horsepower solves all problems. You know, something with 400 horsepower is better than anything with 250. You know, but the NSX proved that not to be true.
Exactly.
You know?
The whole idea of balance that we talked about a lot. What does the car weigh? What does the engine produce? What kind of torque does it have? You know, it's this whole sort of alchemy of individual things that come together. And I even am a fan, frankly, of the 914 four-cylinder models, the 1.7 and 2-liter models. The 1.7 for the way it looks with the smaller bumpers, the 2-liter for the better engine. But this is a totally different thing. And, you know, tell me if you think I'm absolutely crazy, and I know you will, but driving this, does it not remind you a little bit of your Carrera 2?
Yeah, I guess that's probably true to say. I mean, there's so much you can do with this six-cylinder. This is 110 horsepower, which really feels like 200 horsepower because it's so lightweight. But you can get 180, 2.25 out of this engine with no problem.
This is an amazing, amazing car, which again just goes to show how flexible this platform was. And the fact that in Europe they actually marketed them as VW Porsches with the badge on them.
Well, I think the 6 was always a Porsche, right?
The 6 was always a Porsche, but they only marketed this car in the US as a Porsche.
Right.
Even though, of course, it was ironic because the biggest market for the Karmann Ghia for Volkswagen was America. But we ended up with the Scirocco instead.
Plus, I think they made the same mistake they made with the original Corvette. They had the Corvette, and then you had in 1990 the ZR1 Corvette, which was a fabulous engine, 4-cam, made by Mercury, all kinds of trick stuff. But it looked just like a regular Corvette.
Right.
But it was twice as much money. So
you don't have to read the badge in order to figure out what it is that you got.
So why would you pay twice as much money for a car that looks like the standard model? And that was the problem with this.
Yes.
If you didn't know that little 6 was on the back, it's just a 914, you know?
And it's not a car, to your point, that you're going to drive by a bunch of people and they're all going to start pointing at you and saying, "Oh my God, look at that!" You know, it's like a Lamborghini or something.
Right.
Or even a 911. You know, little kids know the shape of 911s and they point to it and they know it's a Porsche.
Right.
Here you have to explain.
Yeah.
I think that this has a lot to offer in Porsche world and in the world in general. And keeping in our theme today that we've seen with the Jaguar and the Corvair, and now this, while 914.6s are certainly not cheap anymore.
No.
They still, I think, offer a great deal of value compared to other cars of their type.
Right. And, you know, it's so funny. We live in an era now where people talk about the F1 McLaren, which, and it's totally analog, no power brake, no power steering. This is totally analog. No power brake, no power steering on this, I don't think.
I don't think so.
No, because it is so lightweight. It's just, boy, what a great car to drive.
So responsive. And I love driving this car. And I too absolutely love the 914, 914.6.
Yeah.
I also regret not buying one when I had the opportunity, but other things sort of stood in the way.
Right.
But this is a very, very special car, and again, just proving that Mansions and Motorcars has allowed me to give more strength to a tenuous connection than anyone else in history.